Millions of Black people throughout the diaspora have made the declaration that we must emancipate our minds from white mental slavery and that none but ourselves can do so. But the problem is that most Black people don't have a mental reference of what Black mental liberating knowledge actually is. This is why many Black people attempts to emancipate their minds results in them moving from one mental enslaving lies to another, such as witnessed when Black people stop being Christians and become Black Hebrews while reading from the same Bible, ignorantly believing that they've moved closer towards the emancipation of their minds. There's nothing more saddening and more pathetic than witnessing Black people quoting scriptures from the colonizer's Bible, believing that their minds are elevated. True Black mental liberating knowledge are information that makes you question and challenge the validity of all information that you receive from the white society. Moreover, it stimulates and elevates your critical thinking and pushes you to gain a more clear and accurate understanding of your plight and condition. An elevation and an expansion that also stimulates your critical thinking towards finding ways that are necessary in order to truly liberate yourself. Throughout generations, the ancestors have always provided us with those they've given the insight to see through the maze of lies and confusion which our enemies have designed for us. These are the ones among us that are born with a spiritual insight that allows us to see through the illusory worldview grafted upon us from birth through white social engineering. Those among us that can see the true reality that so many others are oblivious to. We don't follow the mentally enslaved crowd, but we instead choose true knowledge over the veil of ignorance. Those of us that have been blessed by our ancestors with this spiritual gift of insight must teach the truth to those of us that are mentally enslaved by the white society. Our ancestors demand this of us. The truth is much more powerful than most people realize. The truth has a vibrational frequency that's more powerful than any lie. All you have to do is keep repeatedly telling and sharing the truth, and it will eventually prevail over the lies. Maybe not immediately, but if you keep repeatedly telling the truth, it will eventually prevail. Furthermore, once the mind of a Black person has been expanded to a greater radius by the Black liberating truth, the mind cannot return back to its original smaller dimensions because the truth won't allow it to. Once the truth has been seen, it cannot be unseen. Once the truth has been heard, it cannot be unheard. Once the truth has been explained, it cannot be unexplained. It's for this reason why the truth literally acts like a virus within the system of white supremacy that sits upon a throne of lies. The truth is highly disruptive to the narcissistic white society that relies upon the sustainment of lies in order to maintain its social dominance. This is why white oppressive forces work so hard and unrelentingly behind the scenes, deploying suppression tactics to keep the Black masses from learning Black liberating truths. It's why whenever we post truth that contradict their lies, Facebook shadow bans it, TikTok blocks it, Twitter deletes it, Google hides it, YouTube bans it, the white mainstream media censors it, and the white government forbids it. The white society regulates and censors the information that we receive in order to keep us mentally enslaved. Nonetheless, those who know the truth must teach African proverb. There are 4 things you will learn if you watch this entire video. 4 things that will begin the emancipation of your mind from white mental slavery. 1, you'll learn that your perception of reality is an elaborate white deception. This is possible because the public perception of reality is shaped by the narratives that are fed into a society. Because White people control the societal narratives. They literally owns the interpretation and our perception of reality. They constantly feed false white exalting and false black marginalizing narratives into a society that shapes their public perceptions in ways that aids them in maintaining their social dominance over black people. The second thing you learn that the history we've been taught has been whitewashed by white historians to make it appear as if we owe Caucasians something, when in reality, it is they who owes us everything. And through this whitewashing practice, the collective self-image and collective self-esteem of Caucasians have been falsely bolstered at the expense of the collective self-image and collective self-esteem of black people. 3, you'll also learn that the oppressor's depiction of the oppressed is never a true one. It's always negatively distorted to serve the oppressor's nefarious hidden agendas against the oppressed. This fact has remained consistent throughout history, and it's especially still true now in regards to black people living under white oppression. 4, and you'll also learn what it truly means when white social scientists says those who control the past also controls the future. The first step toward the emancipation of your mind begins with learning that the psychodynamic factors presently affecting many black people have beginnings that are deeply rooted in how the white society falsely depicts our history. How we view our past actively determines how we perceive ourselves. Dr. John Henry Clark, the renowned African-American historian and author, said that a history to a people is like a relationship between a mother and her child. He further said that history tells the people who they are and what they have accomplished, and that history is like a clock that tells the people their geographical time of day. Dr. Ronald D. Steele of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services added to Dr. Clark's statement by saying that knowledge of history and heritage enhances one's self-esteem. It gives one the basis to make accurate, concrete interpretations of our current event, and it encourages the people to inspire for the highest in society in spite of obstacles. People references their potentials and capabilities in relation to the history they are taught to believe about their group. This fact is unsettling when recognizing that the history we're being taught has been whitewashed to make Caucasians appear much more significant throughout history than they truly in fact were, while making we Africans appear less significant throughout history than we truly in fact were. Doing so provides the white society with a false historical platform that endorses their current position of social dominance over black people. And the whitewashing is so obvious that seeing it is like taking an open book test that no one should fail. The only reason most people don't know this is because they haven't researched any facts for themselves. They've been blindly allowing the white society to tell them what to believe. However, once you start researching facts, it becomes clear that the history we've been taught has been totally whitewashed to falsely exalt Caucasians at the expense of we Africans. They won't teach our true great history because they're using it for themselves. Case, point, and proof. Although Egypt is located in Africa, and although carbon date testings have scientifically proven that the ancient kingdom was built by Africans many thousands of years long before the arrival of the Arabs and the Europeans during the 7th century, the white society nonetheless ridiculously depict Africa's ancient Egyptians as having been Europeans. White propaganda also created the term Middle East to make it appear that Egypt is outside of Africa. However, all hard facts confirm that Africa's ancient Egyptians were in fact Africans. Geographical location, hair sample testings, melanin concentration skin testings, bone density testings, and DNA analysis have all scientifically proven that Africa's ancient Egyptians were in fact Africans. Their DNA testings prove that they belong to the human Y chromosome group E1B1A. This is consistent with sub-Saharan Africans. The white society also whitewashed history by miseducating us to believe that the father of medicine was a Greek named Hippocrates. However, the true father of medicine was an African named Imhotep. Imhotep was practicing medicine and writing on the subject for more than 2,000 years before Hippocrates was even born. He is the author of the Egyptian medical text written on papyrus, which contains almost 100 anatomical terms and describes 48 injuries and their treatments found in ancient Egypt. The white society also whitewashed history by teaching us that the world's first scholars were the Greeks. However, Greece's first scholars openly admitted that they were educated by African scholars. The world's first scholars were Africans. When Socrates wrote in his studies in the book Bucyrus, he wrote that he and all the other Greek scholars received their education in Africa. Long before the Europeans invaded Africa, it was Africans that civilized Europe. The white society also whitewashed history by teaching us that the Greeks built the Great Library of Alexandria located in Africa's Egypt. Critically think, it doesn't make sense that the Greek would build their greatest library in Africa's Egypt instead of in their own homeland of Greece. The truth is that the Greeks have falsely given themselves credit for the great library built by Africans. This narrative is much more consistent with the fact that it was the Africans that civilized the Greeks. The true hidden historical facts are that Africans introduced science, writing, math, and philosophy to the world. The world's oldest university, library, manuscript, encyclopedia, human prosthetic, mathematical tools, medical journals are all located in Africa. The world's oldest standing kingdom and the world's are all located in Africa. Africans are the first to build in stone and the first to smelt metal. History's largest wall ever built is not the Great Wall of China. It's actually the Great Wall of Benin, located in Africa's Nigeria. Africans invented the wheel, paper, the calendar, the concept of 24 hours in a day, haircuts, 365-day calendar, leap year, organized labor, surgical instrument, cosmetics, the plow, the wheel, black ink, ink pen, shoes, high heel shoes, condoms, hair wigs, hair dye, hair extensions, makeup, hairbrush, keys, hair combs, lever, vase, bread mints, the chisel, toothpaste, door locks, shaving, writing, astronomy, medicine, solar calendar, mathematics, paved roads, governments. Africans introduced shaving, the use of toothpaste, perfume, fragrance oil, deodorant, and even introduced the daily bath to Europeans. There's more. The history we've been taught has also been whitewashed to make it appear that Caucasians are responsible for most inventions that have revolutionized the world, while making we Africans appear as having been leeches of society that haven't invented much throughout history. We're the leeches. The truth is, however, the exact opposite from what they've manipulated millions to believe. A historical fact that has been whitewashed from your history books is the fact that within 80 years following the abolishment of slavery, and in spite of receiving no reparations and wrought by cultural traumas caused from slavery and the continued injustices of white racism, African Americans submitted 726 invention patent applications to the U.S. Patent Office. This isn't only extraordinary under these circumstances and so closely following slavery, but it also more than doubled the number of patents submitted by whites during the same time period. This was achieved although African Americans had made up less than 3% of the populations then. This scenario of black people outperforming whites at creating inventions has never stopped. It's merely being concealed through an elaborate perception management system that falsely exalts whites and falsely marginalizes blacks in order to maintain false perceptions in society that aids in maintaining white social dominance over black people. The hidden fact is that in spite of cultural traumas wrought by the injustices of white racism and slavery, most inventions that have revolutionized the world were either in fact invented by black people or were directly inspired by early inventions by black people. Without black people, we wouldn't have airplanes. The first airplane was built, patented, and flown by a black man 3 years before the Wright brothers patented flown theirs. Without black people, there would exist no internet, no cell phones. We wouldn't have cameras and microphones on our cell phones. We wouldn't have the accurate weather forecasting system. We wouldn't have the cataract laser removal scope that's giving sight to millions around the world. There'd be no email, no GPS, no hearing aids, no touch-tone phones, no caller ID, no home surveillance security systems, no motorized vehicles, no steam engines, no traffic lights, no working light bulbs, no elevators, therefore no skyscrapers. We wouldn't have air conditioning. There'd be no modern color PC. We wouldn't have 3D movies, central heating, refrigerators, helicopters, washing machines, lawnmowers, dryers, refrigerated trucks, blood banks, fiber optics, nanotechnology, female sanitary pads, bathroom tissue holders, pencil sharpening, etc., doorknobs. Through their perception management system, white propagandists have misled millions to perceive it that black people are the leeches of our society and that we haven't invented much throughout history. But the truth is the exact opposite from what they've manipulated millions to believe. Most inventions that we routinely use every day came from the minds of black people. White people invented the patent office and have always used it to steal the intellectual property rights from black people in order for black inventors to get their inventions mass produced, they have to go before white companies. These white companies acquires the rights to these inventions and then places white faces in front of the invention. This scenario literally allows the white society to continue exploiting the great minds of black people while maintaining the public perception that most inventions are coming from whites and that we black people are the leech of society. By whitewashing their history books, the white society also makes it appear as if we owe them something, but in reality, they owe us everything. Through this whitewashing practice, the collective self-esteem of the white masses has been falsely bolstered at the expense of the collective self-esteem of the black masses. The entire history we've been taught is designed to exalt whites and marginalize black people. This even includes the human history we've been taught. The human history has been whitewashed. Case, point, and proof. Although it's a fact that Caucasian shares more physical characteristics with the Neanderthals of ancient Europe than they presently do with we melanated Africans, they've miseducated us to believe that they're African Homo sapiens that turned white due to migrating to the colder climate of Europe. However, it's been scientifically proven by DNA analysis that Caucasians are not African albinos, but have instead inherited their white skin and animalistic hair type from the Neanderthal ancestors. It's their Neanderthal DNA. It's also been scientifically proven that our melanated skin and our woolly hair are the result of Homo sapien DNA. Africans are the only true Homo sapiens, and the Darwin evolutionary chart does not include us. Unlike Caucasians that evolved from lower primates, Africans have always been Homo sapien. What they hide from you is the fact that Caucasians are not actually Homo sapiens. The true scientific term for Caucasian is in fact Homo sapien sapiens. Wikipedia defines Homo sapien sapiens as modern humans that evolved from lower primates. They came up with the term Homo sapiens sapiens because it makes it easy to trick the masses, to make us think they're Homo sapiens. But they are not. They are not of we Africans. Neanderthals are totally separate species from we African Homo sapiens. The implications of these findings are enormous. This means that Caucasians are literally Neanderthals that masquerade themselves as being African Homo sapiens. The Caucasians separated themselves from the Neanderthal and attached themselves onto a Homo sapiens to falsely give themselves a Homo sapien origin. This might be a bit of a disappointment to those of you who favor the premise that all life originated in Africa. However, the story that Caucasians are African Homo sapien, albinos, has totally fallen apart by science. The Caucasians falsely attached themselves onto the Africans in order to falsely give themselves a Homo sapien identity. Whenever those who obviously despises us so uncharacteristically then turns around and makes a claim that they came from us, doing so is always some type of lie that benefits themselves. And you know, Homo sapien means wise human. Homo is Latin for man, human, and sapien derives from the word astute or smart. That was a sign to we Africans because of our great history. The wise human is appropriate for Africans because Africans introduced science, writing, math, and philosophy, everything to the world. See, they don't want us to know who we are, so they keep our narratives low. The white society sits upon a throne of lies that falsely exalts themselves and marginalizes us. It's a nefarious whitewashing practice called Orwellian propaganda. Orwellian propaganda are societal conditions created and sustained by misinformation, disinformation, distortion of facts, denial of truth, and even the manipulation of the past to falsely exalt Caucasians while falsely marginalizing we Africans. White historians justify this unethical practice by saying that it's customary for conquerors to distort facts and rewrite history to favor themselves. However, the true reason it's being done is much more self-serving of the white society. The first reason is because, according to white social scientists, in order for a dominant group to maintain its position of social dominance over the subordinate group, the history taught within the society must endorse the dominant group's position of social dominance. This exaltation of Caucasians conveys a subliminal message that Caucasians are inherently superior and are therefore supposed to rule over Black people. That's why they feed us that information. It conveys that. This means that those narratives that offend to our society must always exalt the white society. White social scientists describe this nefarious practice as merely instilling a value system into the collective subconscious minds of Black people that makes us adhere to the authority and existing infrastructure of the white dominant society. The true history of Caucasians does not endorse their current position of social dominance, nor does it inspire their future aspirations. Therefore, to achieve this objective, they've whitewashed history. The history we've been taught has been whitewashed to make their racial group appear more significant throughout history than they truly in fact were. Here's the second reason why they whitewash history. The second reason is because social scientists also theorize that a people's future is predestined by the history they're taught to believe about themselves. According to their theory, an inspiring history is required to achieve an inspiring future because people references their future capabilities based upon their past achievement. More specifically, people references those past positive information about their particular group to acquire a positive self-image and confidence that inspires their future. In a sense, the past can be treated essentially as a set of conditions that justify or encourages future goals. People then reference their potentials and capabilities in relation to the history they're taught to believe about themselves. As I said earlier, the true history of Caucasians does not inspire their future aspiration of their racial group. Therefore, the history we've been taught has been intentionally whitewashed to serve that objective. It has been whitewashed to make Caucasians appear more significant throughout history than they truly were, thus inspiring the future aspirations of their racial group. According to white social scientists, truth is not important for inspiring a people toward a positive, inspiring future. What's only important is what's perceived as true. The nefarious social science practice, this is what's meant when they say those who control the past also control the future. The white society exalts the past to exalt their future. The general population doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't even know it doesn't know. That's a quote from Noam Chomsky. The white man has succeeded in subduing the world by forcing everybody to think his way. The white man's propaganda has made him the master of the world, and all of those who accept his propaganda becomes his slave. That is a quote from Marcus Garvey. We are the disorganized truth against the white society's well-organized lies. Nonetheless, never underestimate the power of planting seeds of truth within fertile minds. You must keep teaching the truth. Yes, they're shadow banning my videos. They've been doing it for years. But I actually share them. Do your best to share them. We must all do our part to lift the veil of ignorance from the minds of our people so we can see our true reality. One love and peace.